Yo, what's up everyone? It's me again. I'm back with another Path of Exile SSF video. And in this video, I wanted to try something that I've never tried before on this channel, which is that I wanted to try to make a SSF League starter tier list. And I know there's like a couple of tier lists that are like already floating around, but I don't think I've ever seen like a SSF softcore specific tier list. So I wanted to just make one of my own, as I have like 6,000 hours in SSF at this point, for better or for worse. So I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of the Path of Exile meta at this point. I play this game like every league, so I think I have a pretty good like high level overview of the different skills that you might play in SSF at League Start. So yeah, just wanted to try to make a League Start tier list of my own, and here we go. So I guess before we get started, just to quickly describe what is a good SSF League starter, I have like some criteria here, and this is basically what this tier list is going to go off of. But the main idea is your build should have 5 million plus shaper damage with quote unquote SSF endgame gear. It should cost you no more than like 3 to 4 div to craft like gear to get to that damage level. And then you should basically just have some defense. And that's the main idea. The magic number, I think, is like 5 mil. If your build is like less than 5 mil, I feel like you just struggle unless the build has like very specific merits. But like generally speaking, your SSF League starter like is a pretty comfortable experience if it has like 5 to 10 million DPS. So just throwing that out there. And without further ado, I guess we can just go and get started and go into the tier list itself. So here it is. Number 1 build on the tier list for the best SSF League starter, I believe, is RFMF Chieftain. And, you know, this is a variant of Righteous Fire that I made, where you basically use Chieftain to easily cap your res, and then you basically get a bunch of rarity on all your gear. And it's a pretty insane build. Like, Righteous Fire Chieftain is really good by itself. The clear is insane. You can one-tap expeditions. You know, these days, RF can get like 5 to 6 million DPS in SSF as well if you dual wield scepters and have reasonable gear. So the damage is pretty good. The clear is really good. You can farm Expedition. You can farm June. It goes really fast. It's 0 APM. Just an insane build all around. And then you also like have so many affixes available because of Chieftain that you can just put rarity on everything, and then you can like magic find with it as well. And the idea of magic finding at League Start, I think, is really cool, because in SSF you want to like drop a bunch of like, you know, cool uniques early on if possible, and this build is like one of the best ways to do that. And in addition, there is a thing called King's March in the game, and I guess now that the town comes pre-built, magic find is less of a priority because gold will probably be less of a priority. But like, I think you still need gold, right? You probably still need gold for like upkeep, recruiting dudes and such. And magic find increases the amount of gold that you get. So it just helps your progression a lot. So in my opinion, RFMF Chieftain is probably the number 1 best SSF League starter. I League started it many times, and every time I was just like so happy that I played this build. So definitely number 1. And I do have some videos on this build as well if you want to check that out. And then number 2 is a build that I have not personally played, but it's Volcanic Fissure of Snaking Berserker. I've not played this build personally, but I was watching Ben _ play it on his stream, and I've seen like other people play it on stream as well, and it just seemed insane. Like the damage that Ben _ had like 9 hours in was just completely ridiculous. Just completely destroying red maps, like moving super fast, killing everything super fast with like screen wide coverage. It just seemed completely insane. So I think this is like easily number 2. The only reason this build is not number 1 is I think Righteous Fire Magic Find is just so much easier and more fun to play because you get like explosions and it's 0 APM, whereas Volcanic Fissure of Snaking Berserker probably is a better build all around on paper, but I think the playstyle is worse than Righteous Fire, so that's why it's number 2. But like if you're like a really good player, maybe Fissure would be number 1. So yeah, that's there. And then number 3, I think, like, and I'm definitely not biased in any way, shape, or form here, but I believe the number 3 top build in SSF to League Start is Boneshatter Berserker. And this is a build that I made. Well, I didn't invent Boneshatter, but this is like a build that I came up with yesterday, and I made a video on that if you want to check it out. But it looked pretty good. This build, like with the new Gore Dancer notable, Berserker can sustain trauma, and then also Berserker gets attack speed and a lot of more damage multipliers. So it was like a 9 million damage Boneshatter build that did sustain trauma, and those numbers are like way better than any other build that I could find. And even though the survivability is a bit low because you have 4k life and like no suppression, the damage is like so good that I think it'll be an insanely good League Starter. And that's going to be what I'm personally League starting with, Boneshatter Berserker. So yeah, I unironically think this is like number 3 build that you could play. And then everything below this, honestly, is kind of sus. And this is kind of one complaint that I had with the patch notes, is that the meta shakeup was like not that good. There's like a lot of buffs, but in my opinion, they weren't enough. And in addition to there being not really that many buffs, a lot of things also got nerfed. So in my opinion, this top 3 is like basically the only builds that will probably feel like super good to play at League Start. Everything below here is just kind of sus in my opinion for various reasons, which I will get into. But yeah, just saying. I wish the meta was a little bit more diverse. Like, you would think there would be a bigger meta shakeup after like 1 year of nothing, but whatever. At least we get to play PoE again, right? So yeah. But anyway, moving on to the sus build territory. On number 4, in my opinion, is Lightning Strike. I would not recommend Lightning Strike Trickster here. I think Lightning Strike Trickster got nerfed like way too many on like way too many fronts. Lightning Strike Trickster, like Trickster lost a lot of defense. They lost damage from the Ascendancy node, and then yeah, just Trickster seemed to be nerfed like way too hard. And in addition, the Trickster version requires Ephemeral Edge, so I don't even have Trickster on here at all. But I do think that Lightning Strike Gladiator or Slayer is still going to be very good. I have played both of these at League Start, but I played Lightning Strike Glad more, I think. I do have a video going like super in depth into the Lightning Strike Gladiator tech. I think it really is very good. Like, the build goes so fast and it has so much defense, and the damage is like pretty good as well. You can do like T17s no problem with this build and do all your endgame invitations. So I think Lightning Strike is still good, although I do have a note here that you probably don't want to play the returning projectile variant anymore, because Lightning Strike was nerfed such that the projectiles deal 50% less damage. So like previously people used returning projectiles, which honestly was an archetype that I never liked that much. I've always just played Lightning Strike the normal way, which is 1 hit melee, 1 hit projectile. So yeah, you would want to play that variant. And I guess just to throw some benchmark numbers out there, in the past, my 2-hit Lightning Strike Slayer / Glad build, I think at League Start, it ended up being between like 7 and 12 million DPS. And then if the projectile gets nerfed by 50%, then you lose 25% of your damage, but like you still have like 5 to 10 million DPS depending on how good your gear is. So in my opinion, like a Lightning Strike build with 5 to 10 million DPS in SSF is like pretty reasonable. So I honestly think Lightning Strike is still up there. Although I do have a note here as well that if you play this, you'll probably struggle on League Start because it is a little bit difficult to like find enough gear to make Slayer and Glad like do damage and not be squishy at League Start. But like after a couple of days, it's totally fine. So yeah, you have that there. Number 5 is a build that I also have not personally played past like maps or past the acts. And this is basically like any concoction build, PCONC, ECONC, PCONC of Bouncing. In my experience, like playing this build and leveling was always really smooth. Like these builds are really insane in leveling. I think IMXL did like a sub 2 hour ECONC run or something. Is pretty crazy. So like this build is definitely like number 5 in my opinion. But this is number 5 with a caveat. And I think that this build, while it is really good in leveling, I think it definitely does fall off in the end game. Like I have not seen anybody like destroy endgame content with PCONC, for instance, with the exception of maybe PCONC of Bouncing, which I think you can take into endgame. But the rest of the stuff is mostly seen in like leveling runs or like, you know, some kind of speed run build of some sort. So yeah, I just wanted to make that note. But I do think these builds are like reasonable to league start, especially if you want to transition into another build in the end game. So yeah. And then number 6 here, I have just other slams. That is slams that are not Volcanic Fissure of snaking. You know, the most common ones I think are Ground Slam of Earthshaking, Earthshatter, and just normal Sunder. I don't think slams got nerfed too hard. I don't know if slams even got touched at all in 3.26, but you know, it's slams. If you like the playstyle, it'll probably be fine. So I have here slams at number 6. And then number 7 here, we have Power Siphon Mine Trickster, the classic overpowered meta build. So this build did get nerfed. The nerf was like roughly 33%, I believe. So basically it's like just 33% less damage. I think in my POBs, Power Siphon Mine Trickster ended up having like 6 million, 7 million DPS. So like after the nerf, it might have like 4 million, 5 million DPS with like 1 week gear. So I think the build still is good for league starting. In my experience, Power Siphon Mines has been like one of the most ridiculous league starters ever. Like the build comes online so fast with so little gear, and the clear is really good. So I think this build is still viable, but like the reason it's viable is because of the fast progression though. Like you come online so easy with this build that I think it deserves a spot in the top 10. But there is a very important caveat, which is that the damage ceiling on this build now is very low. So like it might be difficult for you to do any endgame content because like having 4 to 5 million DPS is like kind of bad for endgame compared to other builds that you could play. So for that reason, it's like number 7 with a note that's like, you know, the damage ceiling is low. But if you're just looking for a starter, I think it is probably still viable. And then number 8, we have Reave. Definitely didn't get this build idea from anybody in my community, but yeah, I think Reave is fine. Reave, I don't know if it got touched too much this league, but it definitely did not get nerfed. And if it didn't get nerfed, then it's still viable. You'd probably play it on like a Slayer or something. Should probably add that here. Reave, Slayer. Yeah, I think Reave Slayer, sorry. I think Reave Slayer is still playable. The playstyle and progression is very similar to Lightning Strike, and the overall damage is similar as well. And I guess now that Lightning Strike got nerfed, Reave is probably like very similar. I don't know why I typed 44 there. Yeah, I think Reave Slayer is like very similar to like Lightning Strike Glad or like Lightning Strike Slayer these days. So it should be fine to play Reave if you can handle the clear style of Reave. And then number 9, we have EA Ballista Champ. I think this build is like still pretty good. I don't believe this build got nerfed at all. I don't think it was that good before, mainly because the damage is like so delayed. But if you can handle the delayed damage, the build is fine. The bossing is like really good on this build because of the mechanics, but the clear is a little cringe. But yeah, EA Ballista Champ, the famous Zizaran build, should still be fine. And then number 10 here, we have Bleed Glad. And I guess now we're getting into the territory of like builds that I personally would never play, but like depending on your playstyle, you might want to play them. So like Bleed Glad, you know, it's a pretty common archetype. Usually you play it with like Lacerate or some other skill that's similar. And, you know, it's just Bleed Glad. Every time I try to POB one of these builds, I found it to be like total ZDPS, but like mechanically speaking, Bleed Glad is fine. So I guess if you don't mind a League starter having very bad damage, that, you know, maybe you can play this build if you can handle that. So yeah, that's there. And then number 11 and the last item on the list is just bow builds, just like any generic bow build. The most common bow builds these days, I think, are Lightning Arrow and then Ellie Hit. My impression of bow builds is that they're really good for fast, like speedruns, like 2 stone, 4 stone kind of runs. But like you have to be really good to play them. And if you're really good, then I think it's fine because you just like don't get hit and then you like move fast and you kill stuff fast and it's like pretty good. But every time I try to play a bow build, I had a terrible time in the endgame in SSF. I just ended up with like 0 damage and 0 survivability in red maps, and it was like really hard to do Betrayal and it was really hard to do Expedition because you just died constantly and you did no damage. So yeah, I would say that like these bow builds are good if you're like just trying to, you know, do some speedrun stuff, but for the average player, I would definitely not recommend League starting a bow build in this meta. So yeah. And I guess that basically covers it for like the top 10 or I guess 11 builds. And now we can move on to the other sections, which are maybe and do not play. So I guess just quickly talking about like maybe. These are builds that I'm just not sure about. And number 1 is of course minion builds. As you guys might know, I've never played the minion build before. I just don't really think minions are cool. But I think if you follow a top minion build from a top creator like Gazi, you're probably fine. Usually in every meta, there's like some minion build that's fine. So yeah, I put that, you know, in this category. And then number 2 is Cyclone Shockwave. This is a build that I'm really not sure about. Cyclone Shockwave has been around for a long time, but every time I try to POB it in SSF, I just ended up with like 1.5 million damage, which is like pretty bad. And I'm just not sure how to like make it good with SSF gear. And Cyclone did get buffed this league, and like channeling did get buffed a little bit as well. So maybe Cyclone Shockwave is playable, but you'd have to like POB it yourself to like make sure it's good. Every time I try to POB it, I failed. So, you know, POB this build at your own risk, I guess. And then number 3 is Elementalist Self-Cast Spells. This is a really cool one, hypothetically. In 3.26, Golems got like a huge buff. And you can actually get some pretty ridiculous buffs now. Like with like 1 or 2 Ascendancy nodes in Elementalist, you can get like 64 dot multi, like, you know, hundreds of life regen, like 400 life regen, like 80% increased cast speed or 40%, and like 80% increased damage. Like you can get a lot of really interesting buffs, and also mana regen as well. Like you can get like 100 mana regen with like the new lightning golem or whatever. And then also like self-cast in general as an archetype is being like buffed all around the board. So maybe self-cast Elementalist will be playable like for some skills. I'm not sure. Historically speaking, self-cast has just been kind of bad for a very long time. Like standing still to cast a spell in like the current meta with like the current levels of monster damage usually is a recipe for a disaster. Like there's just not that many spells that you can self-cast that can like not only clear but also have damage. So yeah, my main thoughts, my final thoughts are just like, you know, the golem buffs are cool, but I'm not sure like what spell that you would play with Elementalist Self-Cast to make it actually good. But I am working on a couple of possible builds with regard to this archetype, and I will definitely make a video if I find something that might be good. So yeah. And then finally moving on to the do not play section. So this is very unfortunate. I think a lot of archetypes just kind of got killed for no reason at all. Not totally sure what's going on here. I think Archmage is unplayable, and there's 2 reasons. The first reason is that most Archmage builds were played on Hero, and Hero lost the 50% less mana cost Ascendancy node So like when I was PoBing Archmage, I ended up with like 3,000 mana spent per second, and then my mana regen was only like 1.5k. So like losing this mana cost modifier is like so unbelievably bad for Archmage builds that this alone I think makes Archmage not viable at all. And then in addition, the most popular archetype, Ice Nova of Frostbolt's Archmage hero, like they nerfed the damage of the Ice Nova of Frostbolt's gem by 50%. So I definitely would not play this build like right now. So yeah, long story short, Archmage I think is just not very good right now. In fact, so bad to the point where I would definitely not play it. The only way that you might play it is if you're using Ball Lightning of Orbiting, but that skill kind of sucks because the clear pattern is really bad. And like you would only play it if one of the unrevealed like spell damage things on the tree that GG still needs to like reveal to us gives you like reduced mana cost in some way. Because as of now, it's just way too expensive. Like you just cannot sustain the mana cost like at all. So yeah, very unfortunate. Number 2 on the do not playlist, in my opinion, is Frostblades. In my opinion, Frostblades was never good. In my opinion, Frostblades has been like a lame 3k HP negative regen scrub build. Not a big fan of Frostblades in SSF. I think this build's really corny. But it's like even worse now because they decided to nerf the projectile damage. So there's like no reason to play Frostblades in my opinion. And Catabasis also got nerfed numerically a huge amount. So in my opinion, you should not play Frostblades. Splitting Steel is also like super dead. They removed the shotgunning mechanic. So the skill lost like 90% of its damage, maybe even more. Not too sure what's going on with this nerf. In my opinion, the shotgunning behavior was the only thing that made the skill playable. So I don't really understand this nerf personally. And I don't think Splitting Steel was even that good before. Like Splitting Steel requires like a lot of uniques like Belltimber's Blade, or you have to play it with Deadeye, which is like very squishy. And like even in the best case, you still only have like 5, 7, maybe 10, maybe 16 million damage. But like there's so many cons to this build, like the clear pattern, that I did not think this build was ever overpowered. So I really don't understand this nerf. In my opinion, if they should nerf anything, it's like Nimbus. But, yeah, not sure what's going on here, but whatever. Because like I guess if you had Nimbus on this build, you would have like 30 million damage, like even in SSF. So I think they should have nerfed Nimbus, not this skill itself. But it is what it is. Basically, don't play Splitting Steel. And then number 4 is Cold Dot. I was actually looking into this a little bit because they did buff a lot of Cold Dot stuff this league. But my overall consensus was that Cold Dot still sucks. You still have to press like 8 buttons to deal 0 damage. Like you have to press Vortex, which is still not instant. And then you have to press Cold Snap. Then you have to press Creeping Frost. And then, it's like... It's just too many things you need to do, and the damage is like not better than like another build that you could play, and the clear kind of sucks as well. So definitely don't play Cold Dot. And then I think number 5, do not play is channeling skills, with the exception of maybe Cyclone. I think Cyclone is like, maybe it could be good, but like other generic channeling skills, things like, I don't know, Incinerate, Flame Blast, I think these skills, even though they got buffed a lot this league, I think they're still pretty bad. I just don't know how channeling skills can even be like in the meta at all. Like non-movement based channeling skills. Like you just channel for 1 second and the monsters walk up to you and they hit you and then you die and then you do no damage. I just don't understand the current design of channeling skills. Like I think it's a cool idea, but in this meta, given the current ratios of like monster damage to player survivability, I think channeling skills just don't really fit in the meta right now. So yeah, don't get baited by a channeling skill, in my opinion. So yeah, I guess that's basically it for this video. I don't know how I made this video into like a 24 minute long video, but yeah, I guess I had a lot of different things to say. The long story short is I think if you want to play these top 3 builds here, RFMF Chieftain, Volcanic Fissure of Snaking Berserker, and Boneshatter Berserker, I think if you pick any one of these builds, you will have like a really good time league starting, in my opinion. And then if you want to pick like maybe builds 4 through 9, it should be fine as well, but your damage or quality of life might be a little bit lower. And then everything else is just kind of sus. And, you know, again, I think this meta is definitely not the best meta right now. You know, they did nerf all the top meta skills, which I think is maybe fine, but then they just did not really buff anything significantly. So there's like no new archetype that's introduced. There's like no underutilized skill that rose from the ashes that you can like suddenly play now. Like nobody's gonna league start like Ignite EQ or like, I don't know, Burning Arrow or anything interesting like that. So yeah, I wish the meta was a little bit less stale. I wish underutilized skills got buffed a little bit more, but you know, whatever. Yeah, that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think about my tier list. Let me know if you are going to be playing any of these builds yourself, or if you think my takes are good, or if you think my takes are cooked. Curious to hear what you think. Although do bear in mind that this is just my subjective tier list, and depending on who you ask, they probably will give you a different tier list. So, but this is just my opinion as like an SSF player, like what builds are probably good and which are not. So that's gonna be it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed, and yep, see you guys in the next video, I guess. Yep.